Ready to start your journey? Whether it's your first workout or you are a seasoned athlete, Endurance for Everyone Coaching wants to work with you. Our coaching team has worked with athletes from beginners to USAT national qualifiers and are comprised of experienced runners, cyclists, and triathletes who have a passion for healthy living and have been where you are. We offer comprehensive coaching programs from weekly support to basic consultation, all designed to help you achieve your goals. If you want to take your performance to the next level, look no further than Endurance for Everyone Coaching. Go to www.teamE4E.com and click on the coaching link or send an email to teamE4E@enduranceforeveryone.com. And let's get started.
Welcome to this week's Endurance for Everyone podcast.
The following program is for entertainment purposes only. Though the hosts of this show are certified Ironman coaches, their attempts at long-course triathlons and endurance events should not be taken as an endorsement for you to do something stupid too. You should make your own bad decisions, then podcast about it. Now, let's start the show.
Hey, this is John Harris.
And this is Rob Bozovich.
And Endurance is for Everyone, and this is the Endurance for Everyone podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 160 of the Endurance for Everyone podcast. This is just John on his own at the moment. We will be following up with something from Rob for the majority of this show, but I did want to put something in at the beginning just to kind of give it a kick. I'm not sure if everybody knows that Rob is actually a client of mine. I am his coach. I think we do talk about that on the show before, but I'm not sure that everybody gets that. So as Rob's coming to the end of our coaching relationship in October, as he faces the marathons that he's got coming up and the trail run that he's got coming up, I just thought that I talk a little bit about the coaching. One of the items during the survey that we recently did was that even though we do have a section at the beginning of the show that talks about teamE4E coaching, that not everybody knows that we do offer coaching. And by we, I mean me. I'm doing my damnedest to get Rob to kind of sign on as a coach. We'll work on that. But I do want to talk a little bit about the coaching. Rob and I have been before. How do I say this? We have been a coaching. We've had a coaching relationship for a couple of years now, and the good thing about having Rob as a coach, you can see I'm screwing up already. Having Rob as a client is that he always follows the plan. So it's been a learning experience for me as much as, me being a coach for him, because I've been able to kind of test things with Rob. And I know he's going to go out and do the run, and I know he's going to go out and swim or the bike, depending on the race that we're training for, and that I can look at his metrics and kind of get a feel on what works, what doesn't, etc. So it's been great to have him as a client over the years because he's helped me grow as a coach as well. Currently, there's a few other people I coach that are in the group. I mean, we won't say those by name, but some races coming up. But I do want to talk a little bit about my personal philosophy on coaching and coaching in general. I think a lot of people feel that coaching isn't required, and to be honest, it really isn't. I mean, you can go out there and buy a plan. You can buy a plan from me and not ever hear from me again. But the problem with buying a plan like that is that they're cookie cutter plans. And you're going to, follow this plan that's based on whatever that coach is good at, I guess you can say. So if this coach that writes this plan is specifically someone who coaches elite athletes, you're going to get an elite triathlete or running plan, and that may not be where you're at right now. This is where a coach comes in. It's not somebody that only writes your plan, because like I said, anybody can really do that. But it's also somebody that watches you and gives you feedback and sees your numbers and sees your metrics and goes into training peaks and looks at your route and things like that, or somebody that you can call up or text or message or however you want to communicate with them and say, my leg hurt on this one. What do I do? My knee is hurting. What do I do? Etc. Someone I have right now who's got a race coming up in a couple weeks, all of a sudden their knee's hurting. So instead of continually to try to follow a plan that they normally would have bought or set themselves, they contact me and say, okay, what can I do? This is right at the end. I don't want to lose my fitness. And so we talk through, okay, here's a few ideas. By that time your base is done. You're really, kind of on the downward swing. So the work has really been done by that point. But what can you do to kind of keep that fitness up? And that's really what the coach's position is. Now, as coaches go, I'm on the cheap end, and there's many reasons for that. That was done on purpose. It was done with forethought. When I was first starting and I was looking at coaching, I was lucky to find one that kind of worked with with me and Jennifer at the time, and kind of gave us a break, knowing that, I work for county government. I don't make a lot of money. So I'm not going to be able to afford what a normal coach would charge. And when you're talking about a triathlon coach, you can be talking $300-400 a month, even higher. Not a normal person like me is going to be able to afford that. And that's where the reputation of triathletes being, wealthy people come from, because, they're the only ones that can afford coaching like that. But you got to have a little blood in the game. And I learned that too. You can't just give away things for free, because people are more apt to follow and to put work in if they have a little blood in the water, or blood in the game. So you don't want to give it for free, but you don't also want to put it at the point that the normal person cannot afford it. And I'll be honest with you, there have been a couple of people that I've had over the last couple of years since my certification was earned that I've given training plans to for free, because I know what their situation was, and I know that if they could pay, they would. But if I know you can't pay, or your situation is such that it would put a hardship on you, but you need coaching or you need a plan, I'm probably going to give it to you, one way or the other. But it has to be something that I see as a need. And I'll talk to you about it. And there are people that have paid, a portion of it, and I'll say, well, just forget the rest, things like that. But my prices, and you can see them at teamE4E.com, are such that I think they're affordable for everybody. You can ask Rob what my coaching has been like. It's changed over the years, like I said, with him. You can go into the group on Facebook. Just look for teamE4E on Facebook groups, facebook.com/groups/teamE4E. And you can talk in there and ask the questions about coaching. And I'm sure if the people who I do coach currently want to put input in, they will. And they'll tell you that, oh, well, I hope it's worth it to them. But if it's not, I hope they'll be honest with it. But that being said, little shout out to Rob there. The episode today is basically Rob giving us a training diary as he's working towards this. So he took the time throughout his training to kind of record during and after his training sessions to give you a feeling of what it was like, where he's at mentally and physically, and just his thoughts as he's working towards Chicago Marathon and Marine Corps and everything else he's planning on doing. So I hope you enjoy the episode, and give us some feedback on the tail end. Go to iTunes or Podbean or wherever you listen to, Stitcher. Leave us some comments. Join the Facebook group, like I said, at facebook.com/group/teamE4E. Follow us on Twitter at teamE4E, Instagram at teamE4E, and let us know what you think. And if you got some ideas or thoughts or just anything for future shows, let us know. And with with that said, let's move on with the rest of the show.
Hey guys, it's Rob. Just wanted to get some thoughts down, recorded here. I don't know if this is going to come out as a sprint or if it's ever going to end up being long enough to be a full-blown episode, or if it's never going to see the light of the day. I just got done recording the sprint episode, giving you guys the housekeeping, what's coming up here, August of 2018, and I just wanted to, as I said, once I get some thoughts down, because I don't know the next time John and I are going to be sitting down to record. It's where we normally go over, hey, what's been going on, training, and so forth. So, at this point, I am still a couple months out from the Chicago Marathon, and a lot of training left to go. And I'm obviously then an additional month on Chicago for the Fire the Mountain Ultra that we've been discussing, and you're going to be hearing a lot about, and or have heard, depending on if this one comes out. And it's just one of those things where we all get into our funks, and I don't know if I recorded anything like this whenever we were going through Pittsburgh. I talk a lot, and I listen to all of our shows, but it's a lot of content. We do it off the cuff. We don't script it like a story, so it's hard to remember exactly what all we covered and when we did and when we didn't. And for the Pittsburgh training cycle, I did do the, I don't want to say blog, but I kept a running list of everything, and then John had put it out there in a couple of blog posts that everyone was able to follow along. And this time I haven't been doing that, just for my own sanity, so I didn't have to document every single thing every single time. And I just wanted to go through because Facebook, or I don't really put much out there, but on the show, whenever you hear me saying, sometimes it's like, oh, it's not so, this wasn't so great, or hey, I'm having a great, and here's where we are and whatnot. Lately, the last, I don't even know how many to say, maybe week, maybe 5 runs, 6 runs that I've done, they've just been subpar for me, for my performance, for what I would be expecting or hoping to go on. I had said that previously, that my numbers weren't quite what I wanted them to be. And when I say not quite, I'm maybe a minute off on a tempo run previously. Today was supposed to be a 10-mile tempo run for me, and long and the short of it is I ended up getting 7.5 miles. I did end up I'm sorry, not even 7.5, 6.5 miles, and then I did walk in a mile and a half from there. So that's 8 miles total of a 10-miler. And the reason why I actually cut that into 2 different segments, so to say, is I was out. I was run walking. My tempo, I should be able to keep the consistent, especially at this point. Whenever I'm doing a 12, 15, 18 miler or whatnot, then maybe I should be interjecting my walk breaks. But for 10 miles, I should, at this point in my training, be able to keep the consistent pace. And I just wasn't able to. Bunch of factors, and when I say could be it, John and I have kicked them back and forth. Like I said, I've been very busy at work, which some mental things do play into it. That will affect your training, no doubt. Ultimately, I've been getting up earlier, trying to get every run in before work. So I'm getting up now at 5:30, and I'm not, to get out there and get the run in. I'm not used to that. I've been used to running a little bit later, but I haven't been able. Have had that luxury to leave work early or run in the evenings. I've just been stacked up helping friends move and other life obligations and so forth. So it's a big change for me, and that could also play a part. The last thing that I guess that I'm thinking it could be, I don't know how to say it other than, and if you felt it, you know what I mean. I go out for the run, and all of a sudden it just feels like batteries drained. I'm running, and I just stop, just walk. I'm just tired. I feel like my like your phone's at 10%, blinking red battery. I feel like that. Walk for 30 seconds, minute, 2 minutes, whatever it is. I feel like I can start running again, and I get right back to the same pace I was at. Which once again, I'm about 2 minutes off of pace for where I should be, or where I want to be for certain goals. But ultimately, that's where I'm at right now. 5 runs in a row, that's where I'm at. Something is wrong. I think I might, hey, fortunately, what I've been trying to lose some weight. So, I have really restricted my diet back. When I say restricted, it's been clean eating, but I've also been eating less, and it's just been one of those things where I'm not intentionally trying to, I'm going to say, starve myself and do a calorie deficit or anything like that. It's just, busy through the day. Before I know it, it's a couple days I missed lunch, and so then it's try to have a little bit more for dinner, but only so much real estate in the tummy to try to fill. So over the next few days or week, one of the things I'm going to try to pay some attention to is my eating, my diet, and literally try to get some more food into me. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to go sit down and have a pizza, but maybe try to, have some more snacks or make sure that I eat regularly and to try to eliminate that variable. Yeah, another thing, when I say weather, things we can't control. The last, I'm going to say 4 or 5 days had been hotter, and I say hotter, for our area. That being said, somewhere around maybe 70, 75, or 80 degrees, depending on when I was doing the run, and the humidity has been high. So today I step out the door, once again, the temperature said it should have been a perfect run, should have been amazing. It was like 64 or 65 degrees. That's fantastic, but I just felt zapped. And like I said, then it starts getting to you, and you start playing the mental games and so forth. I get to the end of the run, I save it, and then Garmin automatically goes out somewhere and pulls your forecast and puts it what was the temperature and so forth. So it was like a perfect 65 degree run, 100% humidity. And I could test that. I could wring my shirt and shorts out when I was done, and I just, like I said, I didn't feel like I was working that hard mentally. Looking at the watch, I was way off my pace, but it's all I could do. It's all I had to put forth out there at this point, and that's where I said I just have to realize and say, this is where I am. There's a lot of running yet to come. There's a lot of workouts left to do that I'm gonna give it my best. I'm not quitting or giving up or anything at this point, but I want to just put something down so when we put it out there, if we put it out there, we can hear, hey, I'm still having these problems 3 weeks later. Here are the variables I eliminated, or it's, hey, I solved it. I think here's what it was. Here's where I'm feeling better, and so forth. So, part of the Hanson's plan that I'm following, Tuesday and Thursday are hard. Tuesdays are speed, Thursdays are tempo. Tomorrow, Friday, will be an easy run for me. Saturday and Sunday are back-to-back. I want to say long or longer runs. It's supposed to be at a little bit easier pace, so I'm hoping that not trying to push the pace, it might invariably be the best thing. Almost like a little bit extra rest. So kind of gonna plan a group run with some friends here, some members of the group on Saturday, a simpler out and back, and then Sunday I'm gonna be tackling one of my first real trail runs. We're going to be going to the local dam, where if we printed some maps offline and figured out hey, we're supposed to do 10, so we figured out about an 8.5 mile course. That way, if we get a little bit lost, there's a little bit of grace on the backside. So that way, it's, hey, if we get lost and 8.5 turns into 9.5, we're good. We only have to make up the half mile. But if 8.5 is a little short, then we'll add a little bit on the end there, and so see how that plays out. So you can expect an update on that. I probably won't do add anything to this until after that run, so sound quality might be a little different. It'll jump around, and hopefully it's some good news and I'm feeling better and the runs went great. But just wanted to be open, honest, and transparent so we can see what's going on here. So I'm going to end this segment here, and the next one should be at least 3 days in the future. We'll see what happens. Hey guys, I'm back for part 2 of my training update here. I had said that it might be at least 3 days in the future. Ends up being almost 2 full weeks into the future here. In part 1, one thing I did not cover in depth, I should say, was I had some foot pain. We had covered that on the one episode though, and I said I thought it was shoe related. Really haven't worn those shoes, but with the second training update here, I had some foot pain again. Although it's a different kind of foot pain, and I just want to go through that. The first foot pain was on the back of my heel, that little bony thing. If you actually Google heel spur, it's about what it says where it should be, although it doesn't match up for why I was getting those symptoms. This foot pain is almost like if you Google gout-like symptoms. Basically, it's where my big toe meets my foot. It feels like somebody just crushed that with a hammer. I say that because I think it might be have had something to do. The only thing I could track it down with is I had said I was doing the change in the diet there. Also, I did do those 2 runs that I had just discussed, the 10 miler back to back. I should go back and re-listen to the clip because it's been a few weeks. I did 10 miles with friends. We did a combination rail trail road, gravel road, turned around and came back on it. And I was wearing a lighter pair of shoes that the cushioning might have been a little bit broken down in farther than I should be running in them, possibly. Second is like that foot pain, it hurt for like 2 days, and it came on quick. Advil or Aleve, whichever one there, the end said, really helps taper that down for me. So I had a couple of bad days of running for that. But I had another 4 or 5 days on the back end, when I say that, were interesting because it didn't hurt as much. Almost felt like my toe and my foot was cramping at that point. More like it was cramping, and the cramp was severe enough that when I say it just kind of stayed and turned into this like almost bruised. So it took me a little bit to get through that, about a week of a couple days of not running for the true recovery, then a few days of just light running. So I'm kind of washing that out of my when I talk about good runs, bad runs, etc. Because just getting back out was a good run, but pace was way off because I'd literally would hobble for the first, I don't know, quarter mile, half mile, mile to get it loosened up and feeling okay. And then I was able to set back into more of a rhythm. Where I'm going to pick up with this is, like I said, it's a couple weeks later, and one that I'm going to call my dark run. And that is twofold. And that's because I ran it at night, but also it was a bad run, which seemed to be the theme here of what's happening. So like, I had a few runs there where I was starting to feel better about myself. Pacing was off, and I'll get into 2 parts of that in a moment here. One's a project of mine, and still the other part's just the humidity. But I was out with friends, and when I say out with friends, I had a friend come up for the weekend, and we had done some projects, and then he had hung out, Saturday. I had done my run Saturday morning, and then he showed up, and then we were hanging out Saturday, and then Sunday we had he was here most of the day, and then we we had dinner at a friend's, and that was the night I was supposed to do my long run. I wasn't gonna skip it, but I didn't end up going out for that run until, oh heck, I want to say it was at least 8:30, 9 o'clock at night where I'm heading out. So I put on some my gear, put on my hydration vest and watch and road ID, all of that. Put on a headlamp and put on my. I did change at that point. I'd been running in my Brooks that I'd said I ran the Pittsburgh Marathon in, because they did provide more cushioning. So I'd done almost every run that week in those, because I was still coming to nursing that toe. And I headed out, went on our local rail trail because it's going to be nice. And when I say safe, there's won't be any traffic, or I don't have to worry about vehicular traffic or anything. I only saw, which I was surprised, I actually saw anyone, but I did see a couple of walkers out. They had their flashlights, and I did see one cyclist on my way back. So the run out was uneventful, and I say run out because I just basically did the out and back on the rail trail, knowing that I had to get 16 in. I went 8 away from my house and turned around and came 8 back. And, I guess pace was good, felt good. I was listening to podcasts, although I only had one earphone in on the way out. And then I don't know how to say it, it was dark the whole time. That never changed. But when I say it felt like it was getting darker, I'm getting farther from home. And, so I stopped listening I turned it down a little bit, then I turned it off, then I was just running. And when I made the turnaround, I still was feeling pretty good. Rail trails are relatively flat, but I did hit the kind of the uphill section of it, but that was great because now I'm turned around and coming back downhill. So then when I say there's a noticeable change, just something I just wasn't feeling good, partially mentally, partially it was physically. So I was coming back down the rail trail, and at mile 10, I just started having like when I say a gassy stomach, it was coming up as burps and stomach pain, and just wasn't feeling good. I was well hydrated, I believe, had my, the water bladder with me, and I still had plenty of that. I'd taken some electrolyte pills, and I had obviously had eaten a real dinner and taken some UCAN, so everything should have been on fueling wise. I was just having some stomach issues, like I said, burping. It was, I don't know how to describe it, and maybe you don't need to know, but it was almost like I was burping Play-Doh. It was just terrible to the point where, I did a little walk, then a run, walk, run, and I did that kind of starting at mile 10, then pretty much clearly right at maybe mile 11. I kind of gave up. When I say mentally done, I didn't really want to be out there. I was tired. I I just the stomach. I couldn't run more than maybe 100 yards or less, and then it just wasn't. I wasn't doing it. I was done. So, and now you got I got several things going through my head. Is it's dark. I'm miles from home, and normally during the day, this is where I could call my wife and just say, hey, come pick me up. Well, she's at home and the baby's sleeping. I got no one else to call. So I have no option but to run walk it in. So it was pretty much ended up being about a 6 mile walk. And I say, or not six, I guess it would be about a 5 mile walk back at that point. And, that's not great, but it's not the most horrible thing either. When I say dark run, like I said, my mind went to some pretty bad places. I was pretty upset. I wanted to be home. I wanted to be in bed. I wanted to, see my wife, see my kid. Because I was mentally done. At that point, in my mind, John's fired. I'm never running again. I'm, throwing all my shoes away. And, you gotta work through that. And maybe long running isn't my thing, I'm thinking. Maybe night running is not my thing. I'm just trying to go through it all, and you get to a real desperate point. And then, I just sit back and say, hey, I was running about a 9 and a half or so minute pace because it was supposed to be a slow, easy run on my way out. I'm walking a 14, 15-minute pace. So when you sit back and say, okay, this is what a lot of people strive for. One. Two, it's 5 minutes a mile. I'm 2/3 longer now what I'm doing, but really, 5 times 5, what is that? 25 minutes? It's not that much longer, and that's why I want to, 25 minutes added on to a 5K might double the length of your race and really put you out of contention for something. But you got to sit back and really put this in context that, hey, instead of a 2.5 hour run, I'm going to be out here 3 hours now, and it's not that bad. It wasn't a horrible place to be in. So nearing the end of it, I kind of snapped myself out of it a little bit. I don't really want to say that it was I was over it. And actually, just yesterday, when I was preparing for this, I went out and looked. I had a 9:30 pace on the way out, 15 on the way back. It ended up being 11:07 average. It really, that little stinker at the end didn't kill everything. And I say all that for somebody who's never done distance to, if you get out there and you get into some, and I'm going to say trouble. I wasn't in any trouble. I wasn't in any physical harm. I wasn't injured. You can still complete something much for, I basically added a third of the length to what I had done, and it really didn't kill my overall pace, and I was able to finish it. So it should be, I guess, words of encouragement. That being said, is I want to say that's a kind of a turning point. So one thing I haven't discussed in all this, and I'm going to call it the Andy Project. Anyone who's listened to John's shows through all the iterations remember his former co-host Andy at one point had said he was going to try to run all the roads in his county or township, or I forget what it was exactly. Well, I was cleaning out my desk one day, and I found an old map, or older, not meaning maybe 5, 10 years old. Roads don't change that often, and had all the streets in my town. So with all of these 5 milers, 6 milers, 8 milers, 10 milers, I figured that's something I'm going to do. I'm going to try to run all the streets in my town, and I've been systematically running them. And if you're following me on Garmin, you'll see it, because one day I'll be on the east side of town running, basically all the east to west streets. Then the next day I'm running all the north to south streets and the alleys and such. Anyways, Tuesday, I've kind of turned my Tuesdays into ultra training slash what I'm calling Andy's project. I'm not Andy, but that's what I'm doing. And, I went out and I was on the west side of town, which every part of my town has hills, one way, shape, or form or the other. And it was supposed to be an 11-mile interval run where I'm supposed to be hitting these hard intervals. I think they were like 4 by 1.5 miles at this maximum pace. So I did do maximum pace for what I could do up some hills, up some elevation and such. And I want to say that this is another Rob got himself in trouble and needs to learn from his own mistakes. The temperature was still where it was previously, decent temps, 70s, mid 70s, low 80s possibly. But that being said, is the humidity was just such a bugger, and you've heard me say for a year or two now, hey, anything under half marathon distance, I can go out, I don't even take water. So I don't, and I should. And that basically an 11 miler got cut to 9, and that's because I had stopped. I was so tired and dehydrated, both from running up and down the hills, but also in trying to work this interval in and out speed wise. I was dripping sweat. I literally had to wrung my shirt out twice. I stopped to get water, and once I stopped, sat down for a minute or two, I had a mile or mile and a half left. Just wasn't going to do it. I put in the effort that I wanted to put in for the day. It was still 9 miles at about a 10-15 average with almost 800 feet of elevation gain. For a Tuesday afternoon, evening, I thought that was a pretty good shot at it. That brings me to Wednesday's an off day. Then there's Thursday of this week, and perfect run, back to where I want to be, back to one of those runs you need in order to make you want to keep running. I go out. It's supposed to be a tempo, so mile warm up and mile cool down, with approximately 9 miles in the middle at a tempo pace. Now, that being said, when I go strictly, I should say, by what I had for the Pittsburgh plan, I should have probably been a little bit faster on the tempo portion, as in maybe 15 to 20 seconds a mile. But for me, I just did what I could do. Was very happy. Was very comfortable. And with that, I'm just going to go away from the whole looking at or even talking about paces, and more so just want to talk about how I felt. I mean, paces where it should be or close enough to it, especially after weeks of not being where I need to be. But it just felt great. And one of the things, maybe later in the year, John and I will talk about some books. And when I say running form, it's whether you're what do you believe in? Midfoot, forefoot, heel strike, chi running, pose running, any of that. You're gonna find what works for you. And for me, what was really just clicking, I had read the Chi Running book a few years ago, and part of that it talks about basically if you feel like think about if you're a puppet on a string, you have the something going from your tailbone all the way out the top of your head, straighten your back out, lean forward. You control how fast you run just by keeping a nice stiff core and just leaning farther forward. And I was in the zone, felt good. I was just like literally picking up my pace by leaning forward a little bit, or and when I needed a breather, I just kind of leaned back a little bit, and it was great. Everything was clicking. Foot felt fine. It was nice, cool air. I did get once again, pretty sweaty. I hadn't taken any water with me. Maybe I should have. Might have helped out a little bit near the end, but everything was where it needed to be, and that's just absolutely the run that I needed. It didn't hurt, and you guys will probably long since have heard this when I do the Ultra August wrap up. I was listening to John's interview with Chris, and that said is that I will say that is my favorite interview from Ultra August. Not that anyone's Megan's and the two that I had done with Karen and Sean weren't very valuable and meaningful. It's just some of the stuff Chris was saying was about pushing through and feeling not feeling it and then feeling it, and I don't know, it was one of those, it found me at exactly the right time. I needed to hear those words when I was out on that run, and it just really helped out and made me feel good, and it made the run for me. So all I can say is, that run I crushed it. But once again, that's one run now out of the last 3-4 weeks. So that's a really long slump to go through. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what the next 2 or 3 weeks hold here for me. I have an easy run on my calendar for today. I'm going to do it in the afternoon. I'm going to go ahead, tomorrow, meeting Saturday and Sunday. I have back-to-back 10-milers. So I'm hoping with the cooler weather here, less humidity, do have a new pair of shoes to try out, a new pair of trail shoes. I went and got a pair of Ultras to see, because I didn't know if that toe pain was coming from the shoe and I needed a little more cushioning. So just experimenting to basically stay on top of this wave on the high tide here as long as I can. So I don't know if my next training update here will be in a few days or whether it'll be a few weeks out. I just want to go ahead and wrap up session 2 here, and the next one might be just the final push in. Training update, we'll call this 2.2. It's not days or weeks later. It's about, I don't know, an hour later than what I just cut that other piece. One thing I realized I hadn't gone over, I had said it earlier in the first section, and that was diet and weight loss. And I said I was going for it and it's going good, and I really didn't give any real super clear updates. So a month or 2 months ago, maybe 3 or 4 by the time this comes out, I had given that one update that said, the whole inadvertent goal, like I was coming off a stomach bug and I saw the correct, I'm going to use air quotes there, number on the scale. It's where I wanted to be, blah, 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 blah. Well, we haven't talked about it on the show, but I am back in, I should say, onto the diet bets. As such, I've been very strict with my diet, knowing what works for me, when I'm eating stuff, tracking it every single day and paying attention. That said, I am about another 10 pounds lighter than where I was. I'm consistently seeing, 196, 198 on the scale as my morning starting. That's weight before I even go for a run and sweat out some, extra pounds there, which is just water weight that I'm going to gain back. And plateaued there. So I went from, like I said, 206 to 196. And, I'm consistently eating more and better, calories. Like avocados are a weekly staple for me and so forth. And I just wanted to share that because, I've actually ran a few times. Part of that inadvertent goal was, hey, I ran with my shirt off and it was hot and such. So it is hot, and I've taken my shirt off a few times once again to wring it out. And if I'm on the trail by myself, I'll leave it off for a mile or two. And, while there's still a little jiggle, it's substantially less than it was. So my body, I feel, was getting closer to where I wanted it to be in my mind's eye. So previously, when I had said, I inadvertently met this goal and it's a hollow victory and so forth, it really was, because it was a shortcut and I got to that number in not the correct manner. As such, it was still a lot of extra body fat, and I'm actually reducing that right now. And in the long run, another month or two to go before the race comes up, I think I'm still going to make some gains. As such, I feel I've rebounded energy-wise because I feel like I'm fat adapted, which is what I was shooting for. And this might be the earliest fat adaptation that I've ever had. Usually I think I'm there, but I'm really not. And I try to do it a week or two before the race. And you can't make changes that quick. So being a month out and having my diet where I need to be and being consistent, I think is going to go a long way towards helping. Obviously, we'll see on the next update or two and/or the race recap whether or not that actually made a big difference. So just wanted to pop that in here. End of session 2.2. Talk to you soon. All right, a slight digression from training to talk about training. Ha ha ha, that was so funny, wasn't it? Yeah, no, I know, it was bad. So a slight apology, but it will be a digression here, and that is I'm recording this, as you guys know, as I'm going through. As such, I can't remember exactly what I covered, what I didn't cover, so I was just going to go through the last few days. I do like to listen to what I had just said so I don't repeat things. I'm recording these after the interviews that I had done with Vanessa and with Brian. And if you remember that time frame, everything worked kind of fine. Vanessa's interview part 1. Vanessa's interview part 2, I literally just listened to it and realized that I was getting some feedback from her when my mic was hot, and you could also hear my mic going beep, 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 as I was muting and unmuting it, trying to rectify some of that. So I apologize for that now, if I haven't already apologized for that before. That said, my computer still is broke. I'm using air quotes there because I believe everything is recording. I can see the little volume wave files going up and down, but I actually can't listen to anything I'm saying right now to go back, and that's why I couldn't listen to the last clip. So sorry to take you down that road. But back into it. If you had heard me talking when this would be in the Vanessa interview, I was saying how I had a long run coming up and it was supposed to be 16, and I was going to do a bike race instead, and then I was going to add an extra 5 or 6 miles either before or after, just to kind of simulate and get the same training effect. I ended up doing the bike race. I did really well in the bike race. That was this past Sunday. Well, from me, I should say. So the course, it's a slightly revised from a former course that I've done, and not that you guys care that much about riding or cycling, possibly, or especially on a course you've never done and haven't seen. But I used to ride that course, and it would take me an hour 18, an hour 20 minutes when I'm solo, meaning into the wind by myself, so I have no drafting availability. So when I did the race my best year, I did it 2 years ago, possibly, maybe 3, and I was actually able to keep up with some of the, I don't want to say leaders, but better cyclists, and my time went from like 114, from 118 down to 114, maybe even slightly lower. This year, I actually did the course in 110. And when I say it's mostly the same course, it's the same 95%, maybe 98% of the course until the last mile or two. And the last mile or two used to be a flat sprint straight in. This time they turn you right and take you up a mile and a half or so climb right at the end. So I actually did better, faster on a hillier, harder course than I had in the past. I was pretty happy with that. Unfortunately, though, I did give it my effort. I went all out. As such, there was no extra running to happen that day. I was exhausted, took a shower, just kind of hung out, and I was zapped. That was Sunday. Monday's run, hot, really hot, for our area. So, I'm talking 85, 90 degrees. Humidity was in check. But I actually, instead of doing my 6 miler, made it 8. I lengthened a little bit since I hadn't run the day prior. And it's funny, and I don't think I've shared the photo on Facebook. I might with this one. I had, obviously my clothes were just drenched, but I actually had so much sweat that my shoes were saturated. So when I actually took my shoes off and walked on my back deck, you could see little footprints, looked like somebody just came out of the ocean. That was kind of gross. Tuesday, had a great run. It was hot. It was an 11 miler. Supposed to be kind of like tempo, but and at this point in the Hansen plan, it's a 2x3 mile. Once again, very hot. So I did an out and back, and ironically, I was talking with Pete in the group. Hey, Pete, how you doing? I actually was on a call with him while I was running out. I stopped and got 2 liters of water, 2 1-liter bottles, chugged one down, carried the other one, and sipped it on my way back. I had to slow my pace back from what the plan called for, but the plan is just numbers. You need to adapt in real time, and that's what I was doing. A couple of walk-around breaks near the end. Overall, very happy with it. Wednesday off day brings me today, Thursday. Coming off of what I feel are 2 pretty strong runs, Monday and Tuesday, had me all energized and ready for today. I had to switch my run around because, my one team member employee is still out. I'm going to have my little guy this evening, and 2-hour run. I love taking him in the stroller, but I can't take him in the stroller at 5 o'clock because he'll never sleep through the night if he takes an hour and a half or 2-hour nap. Went earlier. It was about 85 degrees whenever I was running, which some of you guys are like, that's hot. And some of you guys will say, that's not so hot. It's about the same temperature as it was, literally 2 days ago. Humidity, not terrible. It was, I'm going to say, roughly 65% or so. And that's why I messaged John and said, hey, heat and humidity. And John said, hey, if you think that's humid, you're going to die in Florida. But I don't know if it's just an off day for me or an off day on training. I'm out there, I'm running 3 miles in. There's literally only a spot the size of my thumb that is dry on my shirt. So, I had taken a water bottle with me, took a few sips, dropped it, went out a few miles, came back, picked it up around mile 4, chugged the rest that was in it, and at that point made the decision that it was not going to be a day for an 11 miler for me. Ended up doing 5.5, literally did half of my planned run for the day. But, I would have just continued to slow my pace. I would have continued to dehydrate. And to what advantage? Hey, yesterday was my rest day. This is the first of 6 days in a row of running. So if I have to bag one performance today in order to be able to run tomorrow, which should be either 6 or 8. Saturday is going to be 10. Sunday is going to be 10. I'm nearing in on the end of the training plan. I'm 4 weeks out from the marathon. The other way to say that is I'm 4 weeks out from the marathon. I don't need to go out and do something stupid and, dehydrate and risk, having to take a week off. Really not going to gain or lose that much different by cutting it. If I have to cut consistent, more of my runs coming up here, that's going to make a difference. But at this point, I honestly feel it was absolutely the best call for me to do. So I just told you what's upcoming. I'll probably check in at least 4 or 5 days from now once I have some of those runs done. Basically the two longer, not even longer, the long run on the Hansen plan for me now is 16, but the back-to-back 10 Saturday and Sunday is usually a pretty good. They either go really well or they don't. So we'll see where I'm at, and I'll check in then. Did I just say back-to-back 10 milers? I went back and listened to it here, giving you guys another training update about a week later. So I ended up, and I don't know if I included Friday in there. Friday was an easy 6, and when I say nailed that one, it was right on, the 9:27 pace. Not that makes a big difference. You guys care too much about the numbers, but it was supposed to be an easy run, no faster than 9:30. I got right on it. Saturday and Sunday were supposed to be back-to-back 10s. Easy 10 is what they were calling for. Saturday, might have done a little bit too much that day, but it worked out. Saturday I did do 10, ended up with an 8:36 pace. Once again, my easy runs are supposed to be at 9:30, so it was a little bit quick, but I think it worked out because Sunday I ended up not running at all. And up here, at the time you're listening to this months later, you'll have known or forgotten about it already. But Pennsylvania received, in the whole Northeast pretty much, but received tons and tons and tons of rain. And that plays into Sunday and Monday. So 2 days of no running. But Sunday I woke up, and when I say it just wasn't a rain, it was an absolute torrential downpour to where areas started flooding, and that carried through Monday as well. So both Sunday, and Monday were I ended up doing bike rides. It just happened to work out where I was able to get an hour each day, managed about a 16 mile per hour average on my trainer. For that 10 miler, I probably should have went about an hour and a half. Monday was supposed to be 8, so I thought an hour was about appropriate, just trying to simulate time on my legs. Tuesday, 10 mile or 10 and a half mile. It's supposed to be speed intervals. It was going to be 3 by 2 miles, meaning warm up, then run 2 miles, half mile off, run 2 miles, half mile off, 2 miles, half mile off, cool down of a mile and a half. And those speed intervals were supposed to be somewhere at about a 7:28. I went back and I don't think those numbers, I don't know. I guess that is because it's speed. I'm supposed to be working on getting quicker. Once again, a lot of rain leads to a lot of humidity. I was somewhere in around a 9:36 pace. If you're seeing a common theme here, that is pretty much what I am noticing as well, that I'm pretty much dialed in, and with the high humidity, and I'll talk about today's run. I'm going to talk about once again, I'm on a Thursday leading into a weekend, so I'll give you that rundown of my run today and what's coming up here. I can pretty consistently now be running in the 9s, mid 9s, which is comfortable for me. which is a good marathon pace, which when I remember to wear my heart rate monitor, tracks at majority, I'm going to say 85 to 90% of my time is in a zone 2. So for long runs and tempo runs, that all of that data works out. Even if, I want to be doing a 7:30 or an 8:30, I'm not there, and that is when I say partially is, like I said, I did a 10 miler at an 8:36 pace over this past weekend. The humidity was, when I say perfect, I say it was nice cool temperature, maybe about 58 to 65 degrees during the run. Humidity was down around 40%. Today's run is supposed to be a tempo 12. I did exactly what I was able to do. That's best way to say it. I did 12.35 miles. I had an average pace of 9:13. The temperature was about 68 degrees. Sounds good. It was 97% humidity. Literally at about mile 8, I stopped, took my shirt off, and just wrung it out on the ground. I went out a few miles, came back a few miles, and there was still a puddle on the ground. I bring that up, and I keep talking humidity and blah blah blah, wah, poor Rob, but it's really important because your body is trying to sweat in order to cool itself down, and the clothes are holding the sweat, and with that high humidity, it's not drying, it's not evaporating. It's to the point now where almost every one of my runs for the last, I'm going to say 3 weeks, literally by the end of my run, my shoes are soggy, like to the point where they're squishing, but I'm not, like, almost like I ran through rain, but I'm not running through rain. It's just that bad. And that's something where, I bring it up and want to harp on it to say, I've had to adjust my what's normal, because this is the new normal for right now. Meaning, I did a 10 mile or a 12 miler the one day, and I literally ran out, stopped at a gas station, got 2 1-liter bottles of water, drank one there, sat there, drank it so I felt good, it wasn't going to be sloshing in my stomach, and carried the other liter back. Today, I went and I did maybe 2-3 miles, and then I had stashed a water bottle. I grabbed it, I took some sips from it along the way. It was then on another out and back section. I dropped it in the weeds, went out a couple miles, came back, finished it off, and then came back. You guys have heard me say earlier in the year, meaning training for Pittsburgh, when I was training cold, it kept getting warmer every day, but when it was like freezing to 30, 40, 50 degrees, I wouldn't drink any water on anything up over, or I should say under a 2-hour run. Now I find myself consuming anywhere from 20 ounces to 2 liters of water in that same time frame. And that's just, also when I say not good, just to drink water. You do need to be replenishing with electrolytes, and I do have pills that I take for that. Also a little pre-run. I've been working and taking my Generation UCAN powder. Once again, I don't need that energy for the 12 miles that I'm going to be out there, but I want to make sure that it sits well in my stomach, because coming up with the marathons, plural, and the ultra that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to need to be out ahead of that. So I'm going to have to be taking that stuff right from the get-go, not, taking it 12 miles in, because at that point it's too late. By the time your body processes it, you're going to be done. So really starting to work on all that stuff, because I am officially about 3.5 weeks out. According this chunk of this right now is the 13th of September. So I have a full hard week next week, and this weekend, or I guess I should say I'll go through it chronologically. Tomorrow's 7 and Saturday's 8. Sunday's supposed to be the last long run, the last long 16. So there aren't that many of them. I'm seeing 3, maybe 4 of them. One's a 15, then the 3 16s that built up through this Hansen plan. So it's really important for me that I do this one and I'm going to say well on it. Reason being is the last, the one I reported on in this was that night run, and I kind of just flaked out after 10 miles, and I missed the one because I was doing the bike ride. So this is really kind of the culmination of it. Next week, or the week following, I guess next week I should say, it's regular high distance through the week, but then it's back to the 10 and 10, and then I'm into, basically a 2-week taper where the week mileage is up, but then the weekend is, down to 8 and 8. So, which when you're tapering for marathon, an 8-mile run is still shorter by comparison. So I will check back in next week, maybe 2 weeks out, depending on how it's going, and share anything that comes up. Another week down, another week to go. I say another week to go. It's really 2 weeks, but John and I have been talking. We might drop this whole file out on October 1 if we can't get together between now and then in order to do a Chicago lead-in, which, I mean, hey, audio training log about everything I've been training for Chicago kind of means that that's an audio or a lead-in there for it, right? Either way, and that being said, there's another one for you if you keep count. The last week it's taper. So what are you going to listen to me say? Oh, another easy run leading into the race. So I wasn't really planning on doing much recording that week anyways. So, having said that, well, where did I last leave off? I was going into, Thursday and tempo and then long run on the weekend, and I said that was going to be my key one to do. So Thursday, I ended up doing my tempo run. I ended up doing, about 12 miles, just over, which is what the training plan called for. I was on a decent pace, and I say decent, and I'll get to it here a little bit later, what I mean by that. And it worked out for me. Would I like to have been a couple minutes a mile faster? Yeah, but I'm running a little bit of hills, running through humidity. It is what it is. Took off Friday. It's supposed to be an easy run anyways, but I wasn't feeling really well. I thought it was the start of maybe a flu or something. I was something starting nasally up top, which I still have today, a week later. I think it's turned into a full-blown, I'm going to say sinus infection. I haven't went and got it looked at yet because I feel like it's tapering down, but I'm only going to give it another day or two and then got to go out and get it looked at because those meds take a week to get stuff cleared out anyways. So Friday off. Saturday I did, I think it was supposed to be an easy 8. I did 7.5, was just up against it for time, headwind, so forth. Didn't matter. Just took it easy. Half mile's not going to make or break me at this point. 16 on Sunday. It was my long run, and it was long. So a little bit of forethought and planning. Basically, there's a rail trail near me. If you've heard me talk about it, 10.5 miles end to end, another 0.4 of a mile to my house for 11, and then some around town. So I've been doing a lot of running on it, out and back. This time, actually, my wife take me and the little guy stroller up to the other end, drop us off. So I ran with the stroller, which the first few miles is like cheating because it is a net downhill about the first 4, then it flattens out. So it's a nice warm up and gets a little bit in the bank there for you. So I did that, and then he was napping. That was the plan, and then we got to the when I say nearing in on the house, and it was getting hot, so I knew I couldn't keep him out for too much longer. I didn't know how quite hot it was, so I went to my wife's office another mile from home, so I did run him up to her office. I did probably 12 or so with him in the stroller, and then finished up the last 4 alone, and that it was after actually a significant break I didn't plan on taking, but I stopped and, put him in the car, and I, went inside and got a water bottle from her. I did have my hydration pack on just so I was getting more acclimated with it. Just planning to use that the whole time. 2 liters or so of water figure would be enough, but I had already drank through all of that. And then just taking a break and sitting down, it was really hard to get up and get moving again. But I did. Finished it out a little slower on the back end there. But once again, pace was acceptable, being that it, near at the end of that run, or when I say end, on the wife's car, whenever she was leaving, it was 85 degrees or so. Direct sunlight, no, not overcast or anything like that. That leads me to Monday, easy 6. Easy's easy. So I went out and did an easy pace, and nothing much to report there. Then Tuesday was supposed to be speed intervals. I did a course that I did mostly the same. Actually, it was a little longer, so I actually added some to it. But it was a warm up, cool down of like 1.5 miles, and then it had these 1.5 mile supposed to be at pace. So once again, if I'm doing 7 repeats, I can go much faster given the breaks they give you in between. But whenever you only have 4.5 mile repeats, you can't sprint the whole 1.5 miles. I can't, at least. So I got to pick a pace and try to maintain that, which they were pretty consistent going through there. I ended up having a little bit of issues at the end of that, so I ended up with like 10.3 miles out of 11. Once again, I'll take that because of what it was happening that day. And when I say what was happening that day, all of these runs, I started talking about weather and so forth. I jokingly have been calling all of these runs my 65-95 runs, and that's plays on 2 different factors. All of these runs end up being somewhere between 65 and 95 minutes because of the speed and the pacing, depending on the day, where I'm going and such. Additionally, all of them have either been 65 degrees with 95% humidity, or like 95 degrees with 65% humidity. I don't know why. It's within a degree or two, but that's the most common that I see every time I look at my phone and my app and to see what's going on. So some of those longer ones, you end up with more humidity, more heat. Like that's what happened when I said I did 10.3 out of that. I said the same course. I actually did longer today. I got 12 in, and I was within 3 seconds of pacing between tempo and the speed. And today should have been the most perfect running day that anyone could ask for. It was great, maybe 65, 70 degrees and low humidity, a little bit of overcast. Everything should line up, but I might have had a little touch of food poisoning. So I don't know what happened, but needless to say, I had to make 4 different pit stops on there. So some people would say, oh, those are rest breaks for you, but the run was the best running pace I've run, and when I wasn't running, it's because that was not going to be a good situation. So I don't know. It's pretty good feeling this strong this late, especially knowing that it's every day I'm looking at the thermometer or the forecast is getting a little cooler, which means hopefully this is going to pay off just as I had hoping or anticipating. It's going to get a little cooler, a little less humid, hopefully, in the next 2 weeks. And that, if nothing else, Chicago is going to be earlier. I won't be pushing the little guy. Hopefully, a couple of these factors come together for me and lead to a good race. So probably add one more chunk to this next week with how the next 5 or 6 runs go, and then you'll hear a little bit of maybe of just John, or maybe a little bit of both of us on the front or back, just something with it. And next thing after this should be a Chicago recap, and we'll see what happens. Check in soon. All right, guys. Final push, last little bit of information. What I was just saying about, hopefully the pacing is getting better with the temperatures and such is almost exactly what I've been seeing here. So I'm just going to read you the times, then I'm going to skip the details on a couple of the runs, and then just go into what I forecast or what I see is happening here. So my times have gone, as I said, it was like a mid-9 average, to a 9:38, 9:35, 9:04, 9:10, 9:03, 9:05. And the respective distances here, I'm only really going to focus on 3 of those last runs. So let's look at the last 3, 9:10, 9:03, 9:05. That would have been Tuesday, Thursday, and Tuesday, Thursday, Friday here, respectively, of the last week. When I say the last week, it's actually 2 weeks out from the race. I won't be recording anything from this weekend or next week because it's all taper, and realistically, I should intentionally be slowing my times down, and the distances are getting just much shorter and shorter, so hopefully I can keep a better pace for that. But, Tuesday's run was 10.5. It was speed, and I actually ran when I say ran, I did run those, and when I say run, I did ran fast, and then I walked the intervals. So it was a 1 mile run with a quarter mile, cool down recovery, however you want to call it there. I guess it would be recovering on a cool down. And I think there was 6 of those. My times on the runs were somewhere in the 8s. The recovery segment, I was, like I said, intentionally walking it because I wanted to see what my average would be, thinking that that's going to kind of be my plan for the ultra here coming up. So, an 8, and then the walking pace was a 13, averages out to a 9-minute and 10-second pace across the 10.5 miles, which I thought was really, really good. Thursday was a tempo. So when I say it was a 9:03 average, if I go in and look at the splits on there, there is just not much variation. I ran just a flat course. The temperature was really, really cool for me. And when I say everything was almost dead on, just taking a sampling right from the middle section, miles like 4 through 7 or such, 8:59, 9:05, 9:12, 8:58, 8:55. So it was just a hair above or a hair below. It wasn't any crazy wild swing where I was going from, once again, the 8 to the 13. I was supposed to stay consistent. I stayed consistent the whole time. Lastly, that was Thursday. Friday's run was shorter by comparison, 7 miles. In 9:05, 2 seconds off, the same pace pretty much for an additional 7 miles there. And I find that's pretty telling because when I went out for Friday's run, it was supposed to be an easy run, and it felt easy. I've already started packing, so I don't have my heart rate monitor to give the data to say, oh, here's exactly what this is and where I was. But you could just start to feel your body. I wasn't sweating hard, I wasn't breathing hard. It was right where I thought I should be, or I felt fantastic, to the point of coming off of both of those runs. I felt like, well, actually all 3 of them, I felt like I could keep going. And I guess that's the point behind this overload cumulative fatigue training is you do more. So, whenever you're in the race situation, you'll feel better and overtrained, or not overtrained, but, ready to go. That's going to be just about it for the training wrap up. I've started packing because I'm going out to Chicago, but I have to go on a work trip first. I'm going to go there for a few days, then to Chicago. So I'm going to be on taper week. Not much, as I said, to share, or I think that's going to be a value coming from that, unless I was to get injured, then I'd pop something in there. But haven't really looked at the forecast. I usually don't look until it's about 2 or 3 days before, but I do pretty much just take the same race gear, so I really don't need to recap what I have set out or what I'm taking. I will take, my disposable clothes to throw away. I generally take a long shirt just in case it's cold, and a short sleeve. I take short socks, tall socks, and I kind of make it just a game time decision for that. Temperatures, they hopefully won't change too much, but 2 or 3 people have sent them to me, and it's looking like it's going to be high 40s for the day to start, in the 50s or the low 60s. I think that the max temperature that day is going to be like 65 is what's forecasted at this point. Once again, I'm going to be doing whatever I'm going to do anyways. What would be good for me, and a little, I guess, side tip or trick here is, I've never really gone and done a race in, I would say, different time zone. I've always done them in my time zone, so I'm used to getting up, doing my doing my training, doing this, doing that, and then it's getting up earlier for the race venue and all that. We got a hotel that's right near the start. I usually, it's going to be a half a mile walk or a mile at most from my hotel to the corral. You combine that with the fact that corral's open something early, 5:30, something like that. But they close at, I'm going to say my corral closes at 7:45. I'm not going to try to arrive at 7:45, but the race is an 8 o'clock start. But that gives me a lot of leniency to actually feel like I'm sleeping in a little bit, and then travel safely, easily to the start, and I'll be able to spend more time in my hotel room with less time in the corral, should I choose to do so. The last part with that is, it is an hour behind where I'm at. So an 8 o'clock race start, Chicago time is going to be and feel obviously like a 9 a.m. Start if I was doing it here in Eastern time zone where I'm from and live. So it's just going to, I think a lot of things are lining up that this is going to be a good race, and I hope the next time you hear me, it's giving a favorable race report of everything that happened. I know John is going to be the one, he's going to cut the intro or the outro to this, so hopefully he listens in, gives some good insight, and I'll catch you guys in my race report. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Endurance for Everyone podcast. If you have comments or questions for the show, send an email to teamE4E@enduranceforeveryone.com. And remember, swim calm, bike strong, and run steady.
Ready to start your journey? Whether it's your first workout or you are a seasoned athlete, Endurance for Everyone Coaching wants to work with you. Our coaching team has worked with athletes from beginners to USAT national qualifiers and are comprised of experienced runners, cyclists, and triathletes who have a passion for healthy living and have been where you are. We offer comprehensive coaching programs from weekly support to basic consultation, all designed to help you achieve your goals. If you want to take your performance to the next level, look no further than Endurance for Everyone Coaching. Go to www.teamE4E.com and click on the coaching link or send an email to teamE4E@enduranceforeveryone.com. And let's get started.